Welcome to Surrender School. Here's our mission statement. At Surrender School, we recover. Our mission is to share 12-step and other supportive recovery solutions with those who want a healthy relationship with food. We are not an official 12-step meeting, but we do try to adhere to the spirit of the traditions. If Surrender School has helped your recovery, please consider donating. You can find the donate button at the bottom of the landing page for our website. If you are in the United States, it is tax deductible as we are a nonprofit organization. All right, let's take a moment, take a few deep breaths, kind of settle in, let go of our days, and be present here. Feel your feet on the floor, get grounded. We can pick everything back up when this is done. All right. God, help us to set aside everything we think we know to leave space for what we have yet to learn. Okay. So today we're going to get into it today. Okay, so we are looking at powerlessness and personal responsibility. Okay. So here is the paradox of addiction. I am powerless and I am responsible. Now, how can both of these two statements be true? At first glance, they look completely contradictory. Powerlessness, personal responsibility. Step one says, we admitted we were powerless over food, that our lives had become unmanageable. But then recovery also tells us that we have to take responsibility for our own recovery. So the foundation for this paradox, to my pea brain, the foundation boils down to a basic tenet of Stoic philosophy. You must figure out what you have control over and what you don't have control over. Sounds like the Serenity Prayer to me. What you have control over is the personal responsibility part of the paradox. And what you don't have control over is the powerlessness part. So let's even go further down the rabbit hole here. And we get confronted with the concept of free will. At the base of all of this is the question of free will. So now we're getting into it. The definition of free will is, quote, the power or capacity of a human being for self-direction. Our ability to direct our own behavior, our ability to do what we say we're going to do and not do what we say we're not going to do. Now, all of us like to think that we have complete free will, that we are 100% in charge of our own behavior. It just feels like that's true. We feel like all of our behavior, including eating and or not eating, is under our direct conscious control. But it ain't necessarily so. The process of step one, follow me here. The process of step one is like the process of grieving. We go through the 5 stages of grief in this step: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, if we're lucky. Because step one is kind of like a death. The death of the idea that someday we will be able to eat all of our alcoholic foods in moderation. It's the death of that belief. We come into program in full denial, thinking that we will be taught how to control our eating behavior. we all know intuitively, because we've hit rock bottom, we all know that we are out of control with regard to our eating. And we somehow think that program is going to teach us how to be in control, how to eat one slice of stop. I mean, that just, otherwise, why are we here, right? We're here. Then we have a bucket of cold water thrown into our face when we read in the big book that we have lost the power of choice when it comes to our alcoholic foods. In other words, we don't have free will around food. And program ain't gonna teach us how to do that. It's not gonna teach us how to eat one cookie and stop. Now, almost 100 years later, after the big book was written, science backs up what the big book has been saying all along. Well, damn. Now we've moved into the anger phase. Some people in program call this the rebellious phase, where they feel rebellious. I'm not going to give up this food. I'm not going to give up that food. I'm not going to weigh and measure. You may have lost the power of choice, but I haven't. These are the folks who are always trying to prove that they aren't one of us, that terminal uniqueness. Not me. You know, I'm just here to learn how to eat and then I'm gone. Well, okay. They really believe that they can handle eating the tortilla chips at a Mexican food restaurant. Eventually, they burn themselves out and they go on to the next phase, which is bargaining. Okay, we think, all right, yes, I'm out of control right now. So I'll do what you tell me to do. I list all my red, yellow, and green light foods. I start using a food plan. But deep, deep down, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I will work this program. I will lose my weight. And then I will have regained control. So I can go back out into the world of normal eaters and eat like they do. So here's our bargain. I'll submit to the program, and in exchange, I will regain control. A lot of people make this bargain with Ozempic and Wegovy and a lot of the GLP-1 agonists. They think that they'll take that, they think that they'll use the shot, they'll lose the weight, and they'll learn all these techniques and skills that will allow them to stop the drug and then keep the weight off. And then that doesn't happen. If you want to keep the weight off, you have to keep taking the drug, which is fine, but don't lie to yourself. Okay. So that was there. That's another form of bargaining we run into in food programs. So we have this bargaining deal going on inside our heads, but then someone helpfully points out the truth on page 33 of the big book. Quote, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Commencing to drink after a period of sobriety, we are in a short time as bad as ever. If we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation of any kind, nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol. So now we enter the depression phase. You mean I can never have XYZ food again? Life is not worth living without that food. Often I have had people that I've worked with literally cry at the thought of having to give up a specific binge food. And really, what it is the thought, the fear, just the emotion of giving up the ease and comfort of our effect. We think it means we're never going to feel okay again. So why bother? I mean, this is awful. But if people stick around long enough and actually work the program, they can come to the final stage of acceptance. Acceptance of the fact that they're an addict, and that despite this fact, they can be happy and contented in life. They may even find that living abstinently and in recovery is better than any life they've lived before. So let's bring this back around to our paradox: powerlessness and personal responsibility. The truth is, I'm powerless over food, but I'm not powerless over my actions. I am not responsible for having the addiction, but I am responsible for how I respond to that truth, the truth of my powerlessness. So powerlessness means I can't heal myself with willpower. I can't control how food affects my body, brain, and emotions. Powerlessness does not mean I'm a victim, or that I'm hopeless, or that I can't do anything in this situation. And most important of all, powerlessness doesn't mean that I get to give up and fall back into the arms of the food. Powerlessness is not weakness, it's honesty. Powerlessness is simply the honest starting point. We must accept it completely. I can't have any lurking notion, like the big book says. I love that phrase. Any lurking notion that someday I'll be able to eat my alcoholic foods like normal people. The Step 1 Science Workshop taught me how I am truly powerless over my alcoholic foods, biochemically and neurochemically powerless. But remember, powerless does not mean helpless. The AA 12 and 12 on page 21 says, quote, "Our admissions of personal powerlessness finally turn out to be firm bedrock upon which happy and purposeful lives may be built," unquote. So what about personal responsibility? Personal responsibility means taking full responsibility for my actions, decisions, thoughts, attitudes. Personal responsibility in recovery is not about being good. It's about being willing. Personal responsibility is not about being good. It's about being willing. Willing to do what we need to do to stay in recovery. Willing to develop routines that support our abstinence. Willing to go to meetings. Willing to do service. Willing to feel our feelings. Willing to find a higher power that works for us, and then willing to cultivate that relationship. Now, this is important. Personal responsibility is not about doing recovery all by yourself. It's not total self-reliance. We know where self-reliance gets us in our addiction. It's not about doing things perfectly. It's not about whipping myself into shape or shaming myself into doing what I know I need to do in order to be in recovery. Personal responsibility is about accepting and making use of all the help that is out there for us. Powerlessness is the doorway, and responsibility is me walking through it. When we're drowning, we stop pretending we can swim alone and accept help. We grab the life preserver. We have so much help available to us. Our higher power, the program, the steps, the fellowship, service, each other. We have so much help out there. podcasts, videos, all that stuff. I'll say it again. Our responsibility is to accept and make use of all of the help available to us. Personal responsibility empowers us. It empowers us to ask for help. So here's the paradox again. I am powerless over food, and I am responsible for my recovery. They are not opposites. They are partners. Powerlessness is the truth. Responsibility is the response. Powerlessness is the truth, and responsibility is the response. When we live from both, we find recovery. Okay, let's go to the question. Here's our question. Where am I confusing powerlessness with helplessness? What does personal responsibility suggest I do? Okay, I'll give us 5 minutes for this. So go ahead and get started. Okay, so one of the things that I have discovered about powerlessness for myself is the incredible spiritual quality of powerlessness. When I think about my own powerlessness, it is the anchor for my day. It is not a waving the white flag. It's the anchor, the touchstone of my day. And it is where me and my higher power meet. We meet at that point of my power. There is just powerlessness is part of my spiritual practice. And then you continue to work the steps, and you come to step 3, and you come to the powerlessness that we have over people, places, things, and situations. And there is, for me, there is a real sense of freedom in that powerlessness, because I have done hand-to-hand combat with food for most of my life and lost every single time. And not getting into those hand-to-hand combat situations with my food is incredibly freeing. And I am grateful. It's gotten to the point where I am actually grateful for my powerlessness now, because I understand, and here's a really woo-woo part. I think addicts are very special people. We have to, if we don't get lost in our addiction, if we work at recovery, we are like this incredible spiritual light in the world. Because who does this kind of work? We do it because we have to survive. But you think about, love and tolerance is our code, all of these incredible, beautiful spiritual principles that we live by. Who does that? And we are a light to the world if we want to be. We are a light to the world if we choose to be. And I think addicts are called to that. We are called to being that. And powerlessness is our starting point of that calling. And sorry if that was too woo-woo, but I really strongly feel that way. And the more I work in surrender school and the more of you I meet, the more convinced I am of that I'm right there. So does anyone have a comment on that? And does anyone have a comment on the stages of grief going through step 1, accepting our power?
Thanks for recovering with us.